Well, it's a great day in the kingdom of God. David Martin here with Living Supernaturally with David Martin and Friends. Hey, a Dave Martin Ministries production. And I'll tell you what, we are so excited about the opportunity of coming to you here and helping you to understand how to walk in the fullness of the supernatural that Jesus has planned for you. Now, I say we, and it's Living Supernaturally with David understands, but how to walk series in the that we're in right now, I'm not bringing any guest in at this point, although I have a couple of people in mind that I'm probably going to bring in here after we finish the book that we're going through right now. And if this is the first time you're catching us here, let me grab the book over here. And we're going through this book right here. It's called The Healing Code by Alexander Lloyd. He's a naturopathic doctor as well as a regular MD. And his partner is Ben Johnson. And he is a regular medical doctor, a naturopathic doctor, and an osteopathic doctor. And these two together co-authored this book, again, called The Healing Code. Now, we're not selling the book, but you can buy the book on Amazon. And I've given dozens and dozens of these books away over the years. And what I typically do is I'll buy them in used condition. And 90% of them that I have purchased were like almost brand new. And a few of them, I always wanted to keep them before I gave them away because they were all marked up, underlined, and and study ready. But you can buy the books for a fraction of the regular price when you buy them used. So, but this book, the revelation that God has given Dr. Lloyd, is incredible. Now, I first came across this, probably 4 years ago, and I'm not going to rehearse too much of this because we talked about this previously, and we've been in a series here now since the middle of August where we started on the heart brain and talking about meditation a little bit and healing energies, and which led me into using this book because I knew in reading this book previous years, having a basic understanding of it, how, it really brought light to the understanding of biblical approach to healing energy. And what I've done in the last, probably 2 months now, is I've gone through the book again, probably 3, maybe 4 more times. And I'd already gone through it half a dozen or more times. So we're over 10 times that I've done the audio portion of the book. I do much better with audio than I do with the printed part. Although I've got one book completely marked up because I marked the book while I was listening type of thing. But I tell you what, this weekend as I was preparing for tonight's program, it was like I got it. I'm telling you, as much as I understood it before, I have the revelation that I never had before about why this is so incredibly successful and why it works. Again, I had a working knowledge of it previously, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to, with my commentary, as we go through the book chapter by chapter, and in last week we did chapter 1, and I did more reading than I'm comfortable with, although I had a number of people say, David, that's okay, it was good. But I got to be careful with reading too much of it because we don't want to get into any kind of a copyright violation either. So, you're probably going to see me here in kind of an awkward position because usually I just teach out of my heart. I just teach out of the fullness of the revelation. And I'm going to do that in a minute. I'm just going to try to give you a summary of the reality of this here. But then we're going to go through the book, and I'm going to go through it literally page by page. And right behind my video camera, I have a video prompter, a big screen, and I've got the book on there. And but again, I don't want to read it because, one, I don't like that style, but I don't want to miss anything either of the valuableness, of the greatness, whatever, of the content. But I'm going to paraphrase it a lot. So again, we avoid getting into copyright issues because, but again, we're encouraging you to buy the book. So let this be a good, I'm not trying to make money on this at all, but the revelation is so incredible. Dr. Lloyd, again, had his wife suffer 12 years. It's a Christian man. Both men are Christian, but Dr. Lloyd and it's Dr. Anderson, it's Dr. Ben Johnson, both great Christian men. But Dr. Lloyd is one that got the revelation, and his wife suffered with severe depression. And again, we talked about this previously, but after 12 years, no answers, God supernaturally, downloaded to him the essence of what is known today as the healing code. And it's, again, I've had this working knowledge of it, but really got the revelation. Let me kind of give you a summary here of the reality. And some of this will be covered here in this chapter 2, but it's also going into chapter 3 and 4. Then I was kind of, playing chapters 2, 3, and 4 repeatedly a number of times over the weekend to just really get this the content into my heart, so I could speak more out of what I know as opposed to reading it word for word here. But we'll see how it plays out. But here's the reality of it: all sickness, all disease, all infirmity or emotional issues, it is an energy problem. I know that sounds kind of wild, but you're going to understand it here in a minute. It is an energy problem. As we're going to see here on page 1, talking about Albert Einstein. But the reality, you and I, as much as we look like physical beings, and we are, but the reality is it's a field, a quantum field, that creates it's not an illusion, but it creates the substance. But if you look at the structure of our tissue, it's made up of atoms, which are energy. And as Einstein said, E equals mc squared, it's all about energy. And what happens is every organ is energy, every tissue is energy, every sickness and disease is energy. And what we need to learn to do is how to walk with our faith as Bible-believing men and women of God to effectively work with the energy to walk in the fullness of divine health that I believe God wants us to have. Now, here's the problem. 95%, roughly 90-95% of what happens in your life and my life is at the subconscious level. We're running routines and programs in the background of our hearts, our minds, that we're oblivious to. One of the examples, we'll probably get into it next week, I think it's in chapter 3 of the book, but Dr. Johnson was giving this example of he had a speeding ticket or something, and he had to go to a driving school. But the instructor at the driving school made some comment about how when you're driving down the road, how quickly we have to respond when car lights go on in front of us, that we have got to respond quickly so that we don't hit that car, because if you're going 60, 70 miles an hour down the road, how far do you travel in just a second or two? And he said, but fortunately, we don't have to be so concerned about doing that consciously, because there's a subconscious routine that runs automatically, so that when you're driving down the highway and all of a sudden you see brake lights come on in front of you, you don't process that consciously. Unconsciously, automatically, the hypothalamus in the back part of your brain is triggered to danger. So what happens is you switch into a mode of routine where, without even thinking, your foot hits the brake. Now, you have a level of conscious awareness, but fortunately, that's something that is a subconscious, automatic behavior that it's just a learned routine. And 95% of what you and I do happens that way. Well, here's the negative side of things is there are things in our subconscious going back to our childhood, maybe even in the womb, that cause us to have a negative image or a limiting belief that causes a subconscious routine to play out in a negative way. So, let me see if I can give you an example here. Let's say that you were hit by somebody as a child. Somebody, just for whatever the reason is, came up and slapped you really hard, and you don't understand why that happened as a 5-year-old. Maybe it was an accident, maybe it was intentional, whatever. Doesn't matter. But the person was wearing a yellow jacket that violated you. and you were hurt. Well, what happened is that there is a subconscious memory to that event that you were hurt by this person wearing a yellow jacket. Well, the subconscious recorded that event, and it married the event to a yellow jacket. So now, here you might be 20 or 30 years down the road, and you're wondering, oh man, I am so tired, why am I so tired? Why? And this is something I know you can relate to, and there's lots of factors here besides what I'm going to tell you here causing people to feel tired. One of those is the radiation that our bodies are being exposed to, and we did a great show on this in our Business Breakthrough Monday night meetings. It's on the website, and you might want to watch this, called Gia Wellness, and they create a technology to help you to fight the radiation coming from cell phones and computer screens and stuff like that. But I mean, that is a major drain to your body, because your body is spending so much energy trying to fight that radiation, and it can't. I mean, there's no answer for it, but the body tries. Then because the body is trying to protect you, it's taking the energy. See, we have two systems, the parasympathetic and sympathetic systems in our autonomic nervous system, and whenever there is something to cause us to go into a fight or flight mode or of some level of stress because of danger, what happens is the energy that would be operating in your gut, your viscera, your internal organs, including your immune system, the energy that would normally be there is to operate, and Bruce Lipton, a cellular biologist, said that if our immune system has all the energy that it needs, the body would be immune to any type of sickness and disease. I mean, it's impervious to it, because the body has everything it needs to heal itself and to keep you from even ever getting sick. The problem is the energy that our body needs to run health and vitality, again, our immune system, our digestive system, all the internal organs. It doesn't get all the energy it wants because of stress. And stress is proven to be like 95% of the cause of all sickness and disease. Now, there's lots of different kinds of stress. And there's oxidative stress, and then there is emotional stress. So there's lots of different types of stressors in the world. But what I've come to realize is the healing code is dealing with the primary cause of stress. And here's what happens is whenever there's this person that had this accident, this got slapped, and the person was wearing a yellow jacket. Well, what happens now at the subconscious level, whenever your mind comes to contact your visual perception with yellow, the hypothalamus in the back of your brain says danger. And because it puts up this like a 911 danger, I need to protect you because the yellow is not good. Yellow hurts you. So what happens is the trigger of yellow takes the energy out of your visceral organs, your immune system and so forth, and it puts you into a place of stress in getting ready to protect yourself from a potential problem. Well, there is no problem. It's a subconscious routine that is been learned at a very young age. That is, it had a relationship to the problem when you were 5, but the subconscious mind has this routine now. Yellow is danger. So what happens is you are totally oblivious to what's going on. It's all happening subconsciously. But whenever you see yellow, which is probably all day long, your subconscious is kicking in the fight and flight mode, taking energy out of your immune system and other parts of your body that are designed to keep you healthy and whole. Well, they're not getting all the energy that they need. So what happens is you're stressed out, and you don't even know why, and it's completely at the subconscious level. Now, here's what happens is what God showed Dr. Lloyd is how to eradicate, as it would be, that destructive cellular memory, which caused has a negative image and a limiting belief. So what happens now is when you use the healing code, what you're praying is that any destructive cellular memory, any limiting belief, or any negative image that's operating at the subconscious level, that it would be revealed. And that the light, the love, and the life of God would expose it, number one, open it up, and then heal it, so that it no longer has any effect over you. And what happens is now, when we take care of that particular memory that we're oblivious to, what happens is you're not losing the energy to that scenario. And what happens is your body is able to do what it needs to do in giving you health and vitality. I mean, it's like, I'm not sure I communicated it really well to you, but let's dig into the book. But that is the essence of this here is, I mean, the real revelation that I got here this weekend is the subconscious routines that are interfering with our health and vitality. And what happens is, it's like everyone has cancer cells in their body. Everyone has diabetes cells in their body. And 90% of the time, they'll never manifest. But if the body does not get the energy it needs for health and vitality and the immune system working the way it's supposed to, well, the weakest link is going to break. So if you have more of one type of a sickness, disease cell passed down from previous generations in your body, well, what's going to happen is, as we looked at a number of months ago with Dr. Bruce Lipton, we are not victims of our DNA. Your DNA might say that you have a propensity for cancer, as an example. Well, that doesn't mean you're going to get cancer. It just means that the propensity is there, but unless the cancer has the environment to cause the cancer cells to come forth, they never will. But what we want to do is create an environment that maintains health and vitality, so that the proper environment is there, that sickness, disease, infirmity never shows up. Woo! I tell you, I'm excited about this, because you're as we go through this book, and it's going to probably take us 4 or 5 weeks, I'm guessing. We'll see how far we get today with chapter 2, but last week we did chapter 1. So I think there's like 5 or 6 chapters in the book. We'll see how far we get today. But I tell you what, I had some people say, David, please get off of this energy medicine or energy healing, and I'm telling you what, I understand the concern because of our Western mindset and our religious dogmas. But the reality is, and I'm hoping you can see this particularly today, is that the reality is we are energy. We're made up of atoms that are swirling energy, and are electrons, neutrons, protons, but they're all energy. And as we're going to see here in just a few minutes as we dig into this, if we use an atom electronic microscope, we'll see the atom in front of us, but the closer we get to it, of course, the bigger it's going to get. But we would see that, and the closer we get to it, we would actually go right into it, because it's not substance, it's energy. And when we begin to understand that we have the ability to create the energy by faith, and even by natural means, by the way our body works in our immune system, to cancel whatever energy is working against us. And I'm telling you that you and I have a lot of things that are running at the subconscious level, going back to everything that happened before the age of 7. And from birth to 7, even before birth in the womb, things are being put into your soul, or your physical being, into your makeup. And until the age of 7, you're literally operating in the beta and theta brain level, which is very low level frequency. That literally is where people that do hypnotism, they take people to, so they can program them to do things that are crazy and wild, or helpful as it might be. But until the age of 7, you're in that low brainwave frequency, and everything you're exposed to is like being hardwired into your brain, into your subconscious, into your cells. So anyway, we have the means, we have the ability to overcome. And we've got to try to be careful that we don't allow religious dogma. Now, this chapter 2 is going to deal with this. And again, I think this is one of the greatest chapters probably in the whole book, because it really helps us to understand the religious dogmas that we have about energy healing, and it has such a negative connotation because it sounds New Age, and unfortunately, New Age people have used our stuff. And it's not New Age at all, it's Old Age. It's all part of creation. So anyways, we get into this chapter 2 today and beyond. I believe you're going to really be able to see that energy is one, a reality of creation, but how by faith in the blood of Jesus and the authority, we can walk at a very high level and develop frequencies, literally, by our faith in the unseen realm to cancel every enemy's assignment against us, no matter what it might be. In the name of Jesus, we are overcomers. Amen. All right. So, chapter 2, and this is secret number 2. And you might remember that these first 3 chapters are 3 secrets. And so this is secret number 2, and that is stress is caused by an energy problem in the body. Now, it starts off with talking about Albert Einstein, and in 1905, Albert Einstein came up with the equation on the chalkboard, E equals mc squared. And literally, from then to now, the world has never been the same, because it opened the door from Newtonian physics, where everything is matter, to quantum physics, and everything is energy. And although Albert Einstein spent the last years of his life trying to come up with a unifying theory between his theory of relativity and quantum theory, because they are so different. But he actually was the brainchild to the reality that all things are energy, but he's not alone. He's just the first one that really made it vogue, I guess you might say. So, to understand E equals mc squared, basically on one side of the equation you have E, and that represents energy. On the other side, mc squared is everything else. Everything, as they say in the book here, everything is energy, and everything boils down to energy. Now, this is the quote here. All health problems originate from destructive energy frequency. To explain how, he gives an example of going into a hospital, and he's going to ask the hospital to do an MRI on him for 10 days in a row. So he goes in and he has the MRI, and day 1, it says you're fine, everything is fine. Day 2, everything is fine. Day 3, everything is fine. And it's like this sense says, why are we doing this? Everything is fine. It seems pointless. But they continue to do it. My page marker here, by my mouse here on the big screen here. And so they continue on day after day. And then I think it's day 9, they discovered that there was some abnormal cells that showed up on the MRI. Now the question is, where did they come from? The quote here from the book. The answer is that the abnormal cells have to begin somewhere, not physical. And according to the book again, in fact, all of your problems originate from something not physical. Again, it's related to cellular memory. Now, again, before 1905, we were following what's called Newtonian physics, which basically says, among other things, that an atom is solid. What we know now is that an atom is not solid. If we look at it again with an electron microscope, the closer we get to it, we discover that we can go right into it and through it. It literally disappears. So it's energy. And again, quoted from the book here, everything is energy. And all energy has 3 common elements. Now, this is significant to keep in mind. These are, again, 3 common elements to energy. Number 1, a frequency. Number 2, a wavelength. And number 3, a color spectrum. Now, so whether it's a computer or a desk or a gallbladder, one of the elements on the Let me get back to the book here, and I'll quote this wrong here. So, again, quoting here, it says, so whether it's a table, banana, your gallbladder, or one of the elements on the chemistry chart, everything is energy. So what type of energy something is can be determined, again, by its frequency, its wavelength, and its color spectrum. And once it's proven mathematically, or it was proven mathematically by Albert Einstein, and in this way, in recent years, read this here. Once this was proven mathematically by Albert Einstein, and to the way it has recently been validated by research from the Hubble telescope, everything in the world is changing. Now, literally every industry you can imagine in the world is shifting to energy and using frequency, whether it's the automotive industry, communications industry, television, radio. I mean, everything is migrating to the use of this energy, or frequencies as it would be. The one that has lagged behind is, you might guess, is Western medicine and the pharmaceutical industry, which continues to follow in the line of Newtonian pre-1905 physics. Now, when this is Dr. Johnson, it sounds like Anderson, I want to say that for some reason. When Dr. Johnson says he first discovered the healing code, one of the things that convinced him that it was the real deal was that in his library research on the greatest minds of our times that spoke on health issues, what I found astounded him, he said, and he said, I'd never seen it before, even though 2 doctoral programs covering 6 years of his life. But what he found is some of the greatest scientific minds, Nobel Peace Prize winners, I'll tell you this, and people with doctorate degrees in many different types of fields, authors and doctors, inventors, had said when they spoke about health issues that the root of all health and illness is always an energy issue or problem in the body. They also said that someday we're going to find a way to fix these energy problems. And they're quoting here again, they said here that we're going to find a way to fix the energy problem that underlines every health issue. Now, I'm underlining this. Every health issue is an energy problem. And here, in the book here, they have a number of quotes. Let me just read these to you. First from Albert Einstein, all matter is energy. From Simeon Kurlian, he said, this is from Russia guy, all living organisms emit an energy field. Professor Harold Burr, a PhD, Yale University, again, these are Nobel Peace Prize type people, he said, the energy field starts it all. Next quote here, body chemistry is governed by quantum cellular fields. That's from Professor Murray, a Nobel Prize laureate from 1969 at Stanford University. Then we have George Creel, the founder is an MD, senior MD at the medical clinic in Cleveland. He said diseases are to be diagnosed and prevented via energy assessment. And again, what we're going to see is the pharmaceutical or the medical community, they have latched on to the energy as it relates to diagnosis, but they're very cautiously, very slowly not going to go to healing because it would interrupt their wealth. I mean, there's a lot of money. As I remember, next to in government income, taxes is number one. But right next to that, the most amount of money coming into our government treasury comes from pharmaceutical, medical, and cellular. And many years ago, when I was exploring the problems of cell phone radiation, it's amazing to see the cover-up of that technology's dangers. I mean, the amount of not just tiredness, but tumors, brain tumors, and that are being caused by people putting a cell phone to their head, and testicular cancer in young boys, particularly, incredibly off of the charts. Why? Because they're holding their iPads and mobile devices in their lap. And every device is putting out these radio waves, the radiation waves that are harmful. It's an amazing cover-up by the government, but they're being paid and they're being bribed, and so they're not alerting the public to the dangers of the problem. And the same thing here with the reality that energies properly used and released can heal every sickness, disease, every problem you have. And Dr. Bruce Lipton said that, again, if the immune system has all the energy it wants and we can give it all the energy it wants and needs, we will live completely free of all sickness and disease. So they go on to say, if you're going to heal health issues or heal issues at the root, you need to heal the energy problem. You have to deal with the destructive frequency in the cells that the MRI identifies. And that's to be interpreted by a doctor or potential doctor as a potential cancer cell, as an example, or Parkinson's disease, or whatever the problem may be. The MRI is going to show you that magnetic resonance imaging is going to show you what's happening within the energy fields of the cells. All right, the next subheading in the book is Energy, the Quantum Leap in Understanding Our World. And it goes on to say, in the past, almost all energy phenomena was ascribed to deities or some spirit being mischievous. So, again, talking about, the dogmas of religious thinking today, we still have that mystic thing of not understanding the frequencies, not understanding the reality of the unseen realm. I have a series, I was going to put it up here, and I don't have it with me here, maybe we'll splice it into the show here, but a series I did some years ago on quantum, I call it quantum faith. If you've not heard that, seen that, it is one of the best God's ever given me in understanding the unseen realm. And what's amazing is how much the unseen realm at the quantum level parallels the spirit realm. And in Newtonian physics, you can never go faster than the speed of light. But in quantum theory, and proven to be true, and we're going to look at a couple studies here that are absolutely mind-boggling about quantum physics. But in the quantum world, you're not limited to time. I mean, it's timeless. And like in quantum physics, you can take an atom, which have, let's say a number, say it has 2 electrons around it, and we take one electron, leave it here wherever you are, put the other one in Hong Kong, and so they might be separated by 10,000 miles, but you could affect one electron here with a magnet, change its polarity simultaneously, I'm telling you, simultaneously on the other end of the world, and the other one's going to respond at the same time. Why? Because this unseen realm of quantum physics is not bound by the laws of physics of the natural realm, of the Newtonian physics. And so we're looking into this arena that many people identified as mystical or maybe even demonic because they didn't understand it. So hopefully, again, as we go through this, you're going to see it's not demonic, it's not mystical, it's just a matter of understanding creation, understanding the laws of what causes things to be as they are. Going back to the book here, during the area of enlightenment and the Renaissance periods, we began to see more fully, they say, understand how things actually worked in theories to describe phenomena. Scientists such as Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo changed previous views of astronomy and celestial orbits and brought new information to light, specifically that the planets, including Earth, orbited around the sun, as opposed to, previously they believed that they all rotated around the Earth. And Isaac Newton furthered scientific enlightenment with well-known theory of gravity he discovered when, as the story goes, he was knocked in the head by an apple. Changing the next page here. So, he went on to describe many other things, calculus and laws of motion, lots of other theories. Now, when Einstein, though, one of the most brilliant scientists ever lived, showed that E equals mc squared, the scientific world was launched into a new paradigm, and one that much better fit what was happening in the universe. Science has taken now, since then, a quantum leap of knowledge, and we've learned how to benefit from these energies and the fields of energy that are created. And Dr. Johnson was going on to talk about as a child who was it, Dick Tracy, that used the two-way radio on his wristwatch. I mean, how far out was that, right? Back in the 60s or 50s when that was popular. Now we have it today. I mean, I actually have a watch my son bought me. It ties to my Android phone that I stopped using it because it got discolored over the course of time. And the plastic chrome on it rubbed off. But anyway, I was able to get text messages and actually answer telephone calls and talk through my watch. And, you know, all these things that back when, you know, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, all the science fiction stuff now is a reality. And, you know, we're moving more and more into this, the way, you know, information and knowledge is accelerating. You know, I really fully believe we're going to learn. It was at, I wasn't a Trekkie fan, but I think it was in Star Trek. They had some kind of device, tricorder or something like that, that actually would translate you from one place to another place, translation. Well, I'm confident of this. We can do that by faith. Now, you know, we say in the Bible that Enoch was translated how? By faith. Bruce Allen has many stories about, and I was actually on the set with him with Sid Roth a few years ago, and literally on the set they purposed to go to Jerusalem together, but Bruce Allen has really put a lot of energy into understanding this being translated by faith, and I've heard many stories of numbers of people that they're doing it already. But I'm confident of this. We're going to come to a place where it's going to be common to, you know, as a Christian, go do a mission in China and then come back and then go to somewhere else the next day. You know, it seems so far out, but it's so much in tune to the reality. First, the biblical reality, because we see it happens in the Bible. We see Jesus as an example. When he was walking out of the water and got into the boat, he and the 12 disciples and the boat were translated instantly, it says, to the other shore. We can see it with Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. But as much as we can do it from a biblical perspective, I believe that we're going to see how, with understanding how to manage the energy in our minds and working with the energy, that somebody that's not a Christian is going to be able to translate from point A to point B. Why? Because we understood, or we have come to understand how to apply the energies. The same as we've learned how, you know, I mean, think about, you know, 100 years ago, how people would think you were a witch or something, you know, holding a cell phone and watching, you know, video, and who would have ever imagined on, you know, I put a new chip in my phone here not too long ago, and it's a tiny, tiny little chip that's probably a 64th of an inch thick and maybe a ½ inch wide and a ½ inch high, and it holds something like 100 gigabytes of storage. Put that into my phone, and it's something like I can have over 100 full-length videos inside of that little chip. I mean, unbelievable. But see, that's the science. It's not mystical. It's not demonic. It's just understanding technology, understanding how to use the quantum world. Now with quantum computers and so many things that are coming along, we just have to be careful, again, that we don't get into these religious dogmas, because if we would have showed up in Salem, Massachusetts, you know, with modern technology, we would have all been killed because of, you know, being accused of being witches, because we were doing things they did not understand. Okay, so here, we're going to get into a couple of really wild tests talking about quantum world. And so the heading of this is called A Matter of Quantum Physics. And it's called quantum physics. It's very difficult to explain, but let me give, I'm reading here now, let me give you some examples from experiments that the Department of Defense of the United States did, and this goes back to 1998. And this is what they did. They scraped some cells from the roof of a subject's mouth and placed them in a test tube. They then hooked the test tube up to a lie detector or polygraph type of machine. Then they hooked the subject up to a polygraph, but in a totally different building. Okay, so we have cells in a test tube that has this detection equipment attached to the cells. Okay, and then the same thing is happening with the person. He has, so we have 2 polygraph machines going here. Then they hook the subject up to a polygraph, but in a totally different area of the building. All right, so far corner of the building is the tube, the other corner of the building is the person. And then they had the person watch different types of shows or videos, and on the shows they show different types of images, some that would cause you to feel peaceful and loving, and others feeling, you know, angry, and different emotions were stimulated. But what they found is that the individual cells in the tube measured or registered the exact same activity that the person was experiencing. So the emotions that are affecting my DNA on me personally, because your emotions do affect your DNA. And this is so valuable that when you understand that, because we can change our DNA with and through our emotions. So what happened here is, okay, my emotions here were causing, you know, something to be registered on the polygraph, but ironically, on the other corner of the building, my DNA, you know, 50 to 100,000 feet away, was simultaneously showing the same reaction. In other words, how do you explain this? The unseen field that connects us, some kind of a field of energy in the quantum realm, connects me to my DNA. So even though, again, it's 100 feet away, what happens to me here is happening wherever my DNA happens to be. Now, it gets more wild than this, because it says when they watched the calm, soothing shows, the physiological response of both of the individual cells would calm down. When it switched to stimulating material, the individual and his cells would now both show physiological arousal. They continue now to separate the person from the cells further and further apart, up to 50 miles. And 5 days later, the test proved that the reaction continued the same. 5 days later, 50 miles apart, my cells and I, though we're 50 miles apart, are connected by some type of unseen quantum field. Now, here's another one. This one's more wild yet. It's another experiment, but similar effects from one individual to another individual. And what they did, though, this was called the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen experiment. And in this particular landmark study, these 2 individuals were virtually strangers. They were strange. They didn't know each other. So they brought them together for a couple of minutes, you know, kind of a fellowship time period, if you will, you know, and getting to know each other at a very superficial level. But then what they did, is interesting, is they separated them by 50 feet apart. Now, they used what's called a Faraday cage. This is an electromagnetic cage. This is, you know, one of the kind of things that people build to protect themselves from radiation or other different types of negative unseen fields of energy. But with a Faraday cage, they put these people again in a Faraday cage, and it's designed to prevent any frequencies, radio frequencies, and other signals from going or coming. So as an example, you could play an FM broadcasting antenna or put an antenna inside of the Faraday cage, and just right outside of the cage, you know, put the receiver that would normally receive whatever you're transmitting, but it doesn't go, because the Faraday cage blocks all radio transmissions. Now this would be Newtonian type of frequencies. So again, as I say here, and reading from the book again, a Faraday cage blocks normal energy, but it does allow the flow of quantum energy. Now, this is wild. Watch this now. Now, once these 2 people were in Faraday cages, separated a distance apart, they hooked both individuals up to an electroencephalograph, EEG, which monitors a neurological activity. They shined then a penlight in the eyes of the first subject, but not on the other. Shining a light into someone's eyes like this, when they shine a light into your eyes, it causes a measurable neurological activity and visible constriction of the pupils. So in other words, when you see a bright light, your pupils, you know, they get smaller. So, and in the dark, they get bigger to adjust to more light when there is no light. So, but here's what happened. When they did this, the neurological activity of both subjects showed the same EEG activity and papillary constriction. They changed subject and separated them further and farther apart with the same result each time. Now, I can't explain this to you, but this is science. This is, you know, trying to help us to understand the reality of unseen fields of energy that connect us to other people. We talked about this numbers of weeks ago in one of my Tuesday night programs, where how this field that connects us, you know, they have different names for it. Some call it the mind of God. Some people call it the ether effect. Others call it the web. But somehow or another, we are all connected. And that goes on to help us to explain a little bit this next part of the chapter here, which they have identified in paranormal phenomena or quantum physics. And the conclusion drawn from that study, the last one, is that we are transferring information from person to person at an unconscious level constantly with people we are connected to, even superficially. And these guys didn't know each other. But for some length of time, there was this connection in what happened to one affected the other. For the first time, this explains hundreds of validated instances of what seemed to be, over the many years of time, what referred to as paranormal activity. And this is a great example of this. But a mother is having lunch with a friend in one city and looks at her watch, and what's to say it's 12:15, looks up from her salad with a horrified look on her face and says to her friend, "Something has happened to Jane, her daughter. I must call Jane." So she had, you know, just having lunch, and just out of the clear blue had this unction, had this feeling that something's wrong with her daughter. Well, she immediately left lunch and then calls her home in another state in an effort to find her daughter, and she finds out that exactly at 12:15, Jane was in an automobile accident and was okay, but was shaken up. How did she know that? How did this happen? Well, we understand that to a certain degree from a spiritual perspective and you know, operating in the spiritual realm, but it's just as real for people that are not Christians. There's this unseen field of energy that connects everybody together, and obviously people that you're close to, there's going to be a greater connection than others. But even as we saw in that last pen light experiment in the eye, they were superficially acquainted just for a few minutes, but it was enough to cause a connection. Dr. Johnson goes on and he talks about a personal experience he had where a family that he knew very well, they left home and they weren't too far from home, and the wife just had this unction, something's wrong with their son. And no idea what it was, but she said, "We got to go back home." So they drove back home, and to find that her son was, his head was caught in the stairway, the what do you call those, the spokes that go up to the handrail, anyway, and he was stuck. And his sister that was watching him was in another room with a headset on, and he's hollering for help, but she's not hearing it. But that cry for help was heard by the mother some distance away, probably 20, 30 miles away. But she knew instinctively that something wasn't right. Again, we're talking about frequencies. We're talking about unseen fields. But just because we don't see them doesn't change the reality that they are affecting us, or in some cases afflicting us. Let me go on to the next page here. I kind of paralyze some of this. So moving on here, they touch on the topic of mysticism, because outside of the explanation of quantum physics, these scientific experiments would appear to be mystical. But what we have called mystical, in part, has really just simply been functions of scientific realities. That's my words, not their words. But they're natural. Quantum physics, natural operations. So they say here, someone has learned to use natural functions. I'm going to go back up here a second. Let me just read this here so I get to you right. This brings up the topic of mysticism, because outside of the explanation of quantum physics, these scientific experiments would appear to be mystical. what we have called mystical in the past, for the most part, most of the time, simply is when someone has learned to use natural functions of quantum physics for a particular application. Or as in the example of the mother and the daughter in the accident, there are people who can, there are people that seem to have paranormal ability, like in the movie The Matrix, the child's holding up a spoon, and the spoon actually bends. Other people can move objects on the table. Now, again, it looks mystical, demonic, but before we judge it completely, now there are people, no question about it, that use demonic things, but just because we don't understand something doesn't necessarily mean it's demonic. And there are people that know or have learned how to operate or function at a higher level. I've heard stories about a guy named A.R. Borden who, I think it was called LERM, Light, Energy, Reflective Mathematics or something like that. But anyway, he's since dead, but one of the most ingenious people in the world. He worked with high levels of scientists, but it was told me that he would actually be able to cause things to be made out of nothing. Now, I've been saying this for years, that we're going to come to a place where we're going to be able to say strawberry, and we're going to have a strawberry in our hand. I know that. Well, this guy, A.R. Borden, presumably was able to do that and taught other people how to do that as well. And from the people that told me about this, it was nothing to do with demonic or religious kind of things. It was a matter of understanding how to use quantum energy to bring things into the natural realm. Now, again, this is kind of far out there. And, for some people they're probably saying tilt, but hang in there with me, because I think before it's all said and done, you're going to have, a good feeling about a reality that we serve an almighty God. A God that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above and beyond all we could ever possibly ask, think, or imagine. And we are created in His image. And really, all men, doesn't matter if they're Hindus or Buddhists or Christians, all men are made in the image of God. So all men have a certain level of, for lack of a better word, divinity in us, because, again, we're made in the image of God. And I just believe we're just on the threshold of peeking into the fullness of our potential as people made in the image of God. But what I've always said is this, is as much as all men are made in the image of God, which means all of us have a level of creative ability, how much more can we do as children of the Most High God? How much more can we do because we're born again and we have the anointing of God, we have Christ in us, and the power and the authority of a believer. Whew. I'm telling you, when we begin to comprehend the realities of quantum physics and the unseen realm, and we add God into the equation, I'm telling you, we are going to surpass anything anyone has ever seen for the glory of God. Amen. Now, let's just go on with the book here, and I'm looking to see if something has time, and I'm looking at it here, but gosh, and it looks like I've already gone an hour of time. My gosh, can you believe that? Well, I guess the timer's going to be right here, and I'm just getting warmed up, and here we used up a whole hour already, but I'm going to mark this page that we're on here right now. We're on page, this thing is page 49, but we're gonna pick up on this next week. I want to say thank you so much for the privilege you're giving me to speak into your life, and I tell you what, this is exciting stuff, and try to, best you can, not get caught up with religious dogma, and as a net result, because you've yet to fully understand it, limit your potential as a person that is able to benefit from the factors, the knowledge. I think of Wilbur and Orville Wright. Before 1908, I think it was. Who would have ever imagined going to the moon? Who would ever imagine flying East Coast, West Coast, or around the world? See, that the knowledge of gravity, well, that was discovered, but gravity was always here. But then what happened is, scientifically, they discovered another law called lift. And the law of gravity says, whatever you put up in the air, it's coming down. But the law of lift says, if I make a wing, if I tilt it, and I move it along with enough thrust, the law of lift is going to override the law of gravity, and it's going to allow me to go to new heights. And the law of gravity, the law of lift, has always been here. But it wasn't until, our minds came to a level of understanding of this that we could benefit from it to fly. And now, look at, we go around the world, and we got the equipment and rovers on Mars. It's science. We're learning from science. And so here, what we want to learn in this scientific study of frequencies is how to eliminate all sickness, all disease, all infirmity. And I know I'm over time here a little bit, but here's where we're going to be going in the next few minutes, or when we get back together again, is because everything is frequency, a disease in your body or any problem in your body is operating at the cellular level at a frequency. All we have to do is know what the problem is, or have God reveal the problem to us supernaturally, and then all we have to do is release by faith the opposite frequency, so that one frequency that's operating, let's say, at a +2, we now create a -2 frequency, and what happens is the negative frequency, or maybe positive frequency, let's say, and the cancer will say at a -2, so the positive is going to cancel the negative so that there is no frequency, so the cancer disappears. It's that simple. It's that simple, that we have the ability to release, and God shows us how to do this by laying out of hands. We don't have to understand science to know that we'll lay hands on the sick and they will recover. Well, the idea of laying hands on somebody is the reality that there's energy that's going to come out of your hands and be directed to the person. And what's going to happen is, by the faith you have in the principle and precept of God, someone's going to get healed. Well, praise God. Well, we know that works, but now God's opening the door for us in how to get at a deeper level in the subconscious arena to eradicate the things that are unknown. Circumstances, situations in life that came to us that are working against us, and we don't even know about it. This is what's exciting, is that we can get our lives back. We can get our health and vitality back. Why? Because we're simply asking God to expose any negative images, any limiting beliefs, any destructive memories that are causing us to deal with this problem, whatever the problem is. But unfortunately, so many people, because we're so much into a push-button mentality, you push the button, the garage door opens, and push a button and go back 30 seconds, and you got a hot cup of water. We're so into this instant gratification that if we don't see it, after one try, it doesn't happen. Well, what we're going to see later in this chapter 2 is testimonies from dozens and dozens and dozens of people, or maybe not that many, a whole bunch of people, that had absolutely impossible scenarios that were healed by the technique of this energy code prayer. Now, some people got it in a day or two. Other people's it was 6 weeks or 3 months. We may never fully understand why one goes faster than another, but the point is, it's working. And it'll work for others, it'll work for you. And I just encourage you, again, get the book. Again, I'm not selling it, we're not making any money on it, but this book has the answer to whatever you're dealing with, because it deals not with the problem. It doesn't deal with cancer. It doesn't deal with diabetes. It doesn't deal with depression. It doesn't deal with addiction. It deals with the cause of the addiction. It deals with the cause of the disease. And it's a cellular memory that is robbing you of energy that should be used in your healing system and your immune system to make you better. Whew! I'm way over time now. Anyway, trust you're blessed, refreshed. If this ministry is being a blessing to you, and I know it is, would you consider being a partner? Help us to, one, pay the overhead, because it takes money to do everything that we do. But even more important than that is our vision to see over 100 million souls saved, discipled, and serving God. And now, I travel the world extensively, but we have a plan in place. We're creating technologies to get the job done. So your support of this ministry is going to help us to develop those technologies to see over 100 million people saved, discipled, and serving God. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. And we'll be right back here again next Tuesday. Until then, be blessed.